Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the Canadian Tree Fund's 6th webinar in our new series, which aims to bring relevant topics in arboriculture and urban forestry to Canadian arborists. Today's presentation is on the ISA Code of Ethics. Our presenter today is Rosa Gutierrez. Rosa is the Compliance Services Manager for the International Society of Arboriculture. She's been with ISA since 2018, supporting the ISA Ethics Program. The ISA Ethics Program covers appeals, ethics, and trademark cases. ISA's ethics and trademark policies not only enhance the value of ISA credentials, but also benefit the reputation of credential holders who have made an effort to become certified. Rosa also collaborates with other ISA departments, such as the Credentialing Services Department, to ensure ANSI accreditation, and the Educational Products and Services Department, supporting the Z133 Safety Standard Committee. The Canadian Tree Fund extends a big thank you to Rosa for joining us here today. We'll switch over presenter status to Rosa, and she'll take it away.
Thank you, Alex, for having me. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thanks, Rosa.
Okay. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm delighted to be here and provide some information to you regarding the ISA Ethics Program. And let's get started. As you mentioned, Alex, the ISA Ethics Program develops and promotes high ethical standards for the credential programs and requires credential holders to meet this standard, to meet the Code of Ethics. All the credential holders and candidates agree to abide by the Code of Ethics when they apply to become certified. There are 20 provisions in the ISA Code of Ethics, and these provisions relate to safety, the credential holder's responsibility to the public, to the profession, clients, to ISA, to employers and employees. Let's talk about the ethics process. The ISA Ethics Program reviews properly submitted ethics charge statements. The ethics charge statement is the document that gets completed and submitted to me when an individual feels a credential holder has violated a provision or provisions of the ISA Code of Ethics. This claim can either be accepted or rejected. One thing that is important to communicate to the public is that ISA has no authority to issue property damage resolution orders. In some cases, individuals want to be reimbursed because of some damage that happened either to the home of the client, the credential holder worked on, or it's the neighbor's property and the neighbor wants to be reimbursed because while the credential holder was trimming a tree or removing a tree, his property got damaged and now they're seeking reimbursement for it. ISA cannot order any type of property damage resolution order. So ISA cannot order the credential holder or any entity to provide reimbursement. Both parties have an opportunity to exchange communication regarding the claim. The responses are optional, but if one of the parties after a claim is accepted decides not to continue in the communication phase, if the case is accepted, the case will continue to a hearing even though the communication phase has been completed. Once the communication phase is completed, then a hearing will be scheduled. The hearings are held via conference call. An invitation, a phone number is sent to both parties, letting them know when the hearing is scheduled for and the time and an agenda of how the hearing will take place. The hearings are also optional for both parties. They can accept or not accept, be part of a hearing. Now at the hearing, both parties will have an opportunity to provide verbal testimony to the ISA Ethics Committee. The ISA Ethics Committee is composed of 7 certified arborists in good standing, and they will be the ones to hear the verbal testimony and review all the correspondence from the claim, and then they'll be the ones to decide if there is merit for a violation or not. Let's talk about rejection of an ethics claim. The ethics charge statement is reviewed and initially is reviewed by me. I'm the one that receives the claims. If once I review it and I said, okay, I have all the information that I need, pictures were submitted, the documents are supportive of whatever the claim is on the ethics charge statement, then I forward it to the ISA Ethics Review Committee. Then if they said, we have reviewed the documents and we don't see merit to the claim, then the case will be rejected. If the claim is rejected, I inform the complainant and the claim never reaches the credential holder. This means the credential holder will never be notified that there was a claim filed against him because there's no merit to the claim. Once the claim is rejected, then I follow up with the complainant, and the complainant has an opportunity to appeal the decision. If an appeal is submitted, the appeal will let us know why the complainant feels the claim should move forward. And the complainant will have an opportunity to talk with the ISA Ethics Review Committee and have an opportunity to demonstrate why there is a violation and the claim should move forward. Such appeal will be heard at the following ethics hearing. If there's no appeal submitted, then the case will be closed 30 days after the appeal notice. Let's say the claim submitted has been accepted by the ISA Ethics Review Committee. So once a claim is accepted, then I submit all the documents submitted to me by the complainant to the credential holder, and the credential holder has 30 days to reply. The response can include anything: pictures, emails, any correspondence between the two parties, and any documents supporting a response. The communication phase includes opportunities for both parties to exchange communication, and this is strictly communication between the respondent and the complainant. ISA does not add anything to it. We don't ask any questions. It's strictly the complainant communicating with the credential holder and the credential holder communicating back to the complainant. So both have an equal opportunity to respond. Once the respondent replies, then that response is sent to the complainant, and then the complainant gets another opportunity to reply. The second response is the last opportunity. So the credential holder has the last opportunity to reply. Once I receive his or her response, then that information is sent to the complainant for information purposes only. After each party has had 2 opportunities, nothing else is accepted. Once the communication phase is completed, then both parties will be notified of a hearing. And this can take time depending on when the claim was received, when the communication phase ended. And I have some examples of Code of Ethics violations. And please know that what I'm providing in these slides, it's just very little information. Ethics claims entail a lot of information. So I'm just providing a little bit of what a case can be. The examples here do not represent a full case that has been processed. It's just some examples that can fall under one or more of the 20 provisions of the ISA Code of Ethics. So again, what I say here doesn't mean that if you do this or if you know someone did it, that is an ethics violation. It's just a very, very, very small portion of what an ethics violation could be. So let's go into Code of Ethics provision 181. And the ethics information regarding the ethics processes on the ISA website, and I don't have it here, but I'll be more than happy to provide that to you as well. So Code of Ethics provision 181, and these provisions are exactly what they are on the Code of Ethics. So this is verbatim from the Code of Ethics. Comply with all applicable laws, regulations, policies, and ethical standards governing professional practice of agriculture. So a possible violation of this provision can include when a credential holder provides instruction for tree removal prior to submittal of the appropriate local permit. Some states, counties, cities, municipalities have certain tree ordinances where they may require a permit, they may require justification for a removal of a tree. So this applies when that is the case in the municipality where credential holders are practicing and their permit is required and they don't provide the permit, but they end up removing that tree or trees. So that is an example of how there can be a violation of the 181 of the provisions of the ISA Code of Ethics. Again, this is just an example. There's many things that can fall under 181. Code of Ethics provision 187. Refrain from behavior or conduct that is clearly in violation of professional, ethical, or legal standards related to occupational services and or activities. This can apply when a credential holder does not provide client customer with proper documentations or sufficient advice as to expectation or outcome of the treatment or services provided. An example can be that, if the credential holder is contracted to plant a tree in the middle of summer, and you are aware that that is a risk for the tree, and you ensure your client that the tree is going to be healthy and safe, and the tree ends up dying. So just providing accurate information according to your knowledge by being a certified arborist or credential holder, that you provide accurate information as to the services that you are providing. That, it's either in writing or some sort of communication that you have with your client. So kind of have everything documented. If something happened to the tree or to whatever services you provided, make sure that you cover the services that you provide in regarding to providing information. Also, if your contract has that you will provide the arborist report to your client after performing such service, if that's what it says, then of course the client is going to expect you to provide the arborist report if that was the agreement. That's another thing that can fall under 187. Also under 187, you misrepresenting or not using your credentials or professional material according to the ISA branding and standard guide fall into this. This is something that all credential holders agree to. And I mean, when you become a certified arborist or credential holder, you agree that you will abide by the ISA branding and style guide, meaning that if you say you're a certified arborist, then you should be able to provide to your client or to the public your credential, your certification number indicating, yes, here's my proof that I am a certified arborist, and the public or your client can be able to call us or go to the website and verify that you in fact are who you say you are. And I have provided here some correct use of logos. And unfortunately, this is somewhat common. But for example, if you're a certified arborist and you're a member, this is how you should be using the logos if you decide to use the logos. Your credential holders are not obligated to use the ISA logos. But if you do, you must have your name and your certification number. This includes business cards on your website, on your LinkedIn page, on your invoice, on your truck, anywhere, flyers, anywhere that you should be able to, you should have listed your name and your credential, your certification number on anything where you're using the logo, and you can see different logos. If you hold different credentials, by all means, the logo is there for you to use. You earn it, and make sure that you use it appropriately. This is another way to use it if you have employers, so you are one of 3 certified arborists for the company that you work. This is how the ISA certified arborist logo should be used. I have come in contact with companies or credential holders that credential holders, excuse me, that work with different companies. They provide services for different companies, but they are not employed by these companies. For that, you can see at the bottom of the screen, then you can add contract. The company you do services for or contract with or consult with can have you as on the website as contracts with ISA certified arborist. And again, your name and your certification number must be included. They cannot say that you work for them unless you work for them. And that can also fall again under a violation of the IC Code of Ethics if you're not advertising the way you are or you're providing false advertising. This is on your business card. This is the best way to show you that it doesn't have to be exactly like that. If you want your name and number to be on the bottom underneath the logo, that's also acceptable as long as you're having your name, your certification number, along with the logo somewhere on your printed material or website. Facebook page is a very common one and popular one as well. Make sure that you, as credential holder, obey these rules. Again, you signed and agreed that you will abide by the ISA branding and style guide when you became certified arborist. Okay, moving on to other examples of the Code of Ethics. Provision 2B1, disclose to clients and employers significant circumstances that can be construed as a potential or real conflict of interest. This also can apply to 2B2, avoid conduct that could cause a conflict of interest with the client, employer, employee, or the public. An example can be when you start working with a company and you sign a non-compete agreement, and then you decide to leave that company and you breach that agreement. Also, there have been instances where the credential holder trades professional services for personal services. Let's say your employer is a dentist, or the wife is a dentist, or the husband is a dentist, and you exchange services, professional services that way. If you do this, make sure that you documented that there was an agreement between the two of you. You just never know what's going to happen in the future, and if there's some misunderstanding, your former employer can bring that against you. ISA is not telling you what to do, but cover yourself and, protect your credential, your certification, which is sharing with you what could fall under these two provisions in regards to a possible violation of the ISA Code of Ethics regarding conflict of interest. 1A1, comply with all accepted professional standards related to agricultural practice, including national practices, standards, and policies. Another similar provision is 2A1, deliver safe and competent services with objective and independent professional judgment and decision making. And I have two, in some of the slides, I have two provisions of the ISA Code of Ethics because it's usually the case when I receive an ethics charge statement that the complainant is not gonna complete one provision of the ISA Code of Ethics. That is where it is usually two or more provisions of the ISA Code of Ethics. And one action can be under more than one provision of the ISA Code of Ethics. So that's kind of my reasoning why I'm providing two provisions under one example. So an example can be when a credential holder performs unacceptable tree practices, tapping trees, removal of trees, and fails to provide any evidence for these recommendations. Here, there has been cases, and there are cases, where tapping a tree or doing a non-ideal practice can be justified for the health of the tree, for the health of the homeowner, the neighbors, the public in general. You just have to make sure that you as an expert, as a certified arborist, document the reasons why you tap the tree, why the tree was removed, etc. Why, whatever practice it was, whatever activity you did, make sure that it's a valid one. That if you have to defend yourself, that it's a valid reason for tapping the tree or removing the tree. The next example is Code of Ethics provision 2B3. Assure the conflict of interest does not compromise legitimate interests of a client, employee, or the public, and it does not influence or interfere with professional judgment. And this is when a credential holder violates the ISA Code of Ethics through conduct or behavior attempting to influence a competitor's bid. So if you know you didn't get the bid for whatever contract, city, municipality, town, and you try to influence that result either by contacting the company that got it or offering a job or offering money or lowering your bid. And it can be, and I'm just giving you some examples, and it can be different ways where a person can influence another company or another competitor, and that could be a conflict of interest, and it can compromise interest to the public in general, and it can be viewed as a conflict of interest. If you're not sure, by all means, you can contact another CA at the CMA. I've contact ISA just if you're in doubt of an action that either a client is asking you to do or your employer is asking you to do. We encourage you to reach out to someone else and get a second opinion if you're not sure. Moving along, provision 1A7, refrain from behavior or conduct that is clearly in violation of professional, ethical, or legal standards related to occupational services and activities. And these can also, the actions or behavior conduct that can fall under 1A1 can also fall under 2B4, refrain from offering accepting significant payments, gifts, and other forms of compensation, benefits in order to secure work. So this is clearly a violation of at least these two provisions of the ISA Code of Ethics. So again, it's accepting money, gifts to do the job or to not do the job. So they are disciplinary actions. When there is a violation, when there's findings of a Code of Ethics violation, there's several disciplinary actions that the committee will take into consideration depending on the severity of the case. If there's a first time, if there's a second time, has the credential holder has had other claims filed against him or her. So there's different things that can be taken into consideration. If after the hearing, the Ethics Review Committee finds no violation, then there's no violation. Both parties are informed, and the case is closed. When there is a finding of a Code of Ethics violation, then the committee decides what's the disciplinary action to take against the credential holder. One is a recommendation to prevent renewal of certification, or if this is the case of a candidate that wants to become certified, then the ISA Ethics Review Committee can recommend that that candidate is ineligible to become certified. Another disciplinary action includes recommend specific training or instruction concerning the credential holder's professional activity. And this can be, an example is recommend, certain amount of CEUs regarding topping trees or, safety. Depending what the claim was, then the committee can recommend certain training for the credential holder. Another disciplinary action is a private reprimand letter. And this is a private reprimand letter goes only to the credential holder. So although both parties are informed of the results and the letters to both parties says there has been a violation of such provision of the ISA Code of Ethics and the disciplinary action is a private reprimand letter, the complainant will not receive a copy of the letter. Only the credential holder will. On the other hand, a public reprimand letter means that both parties will receive the letter. So the complainant will know what the letter says that was directed to the credential holder. Moving along with disciplinary actions, another action will be the certification. This credential holder is put on probation, and this can be from 12 months to 24 months, depending again on the severity of the case, if this is the first time or there has been other claims filed against the credential holder. Suspension of the certification also depends on the severity of the case. And this can also be from 12 months to 18 months, depending on what the ISA Ethics Review Committee feels is appropriate. And revocation of the certification is also one. And this is on very extreme cases, of course, where the evidence is really clear. And this can also be for a specific period of time. The ISA Ethics Review Committee is the one that says the revocation of the certification should be for 12 months or up to 5 years. And when there's a revocation of the certification, the credential holder has to do everything from the beginning, has to take the test, has to do the entire process. He or she will keep the certification number, but the test has to be taken, etc., registration, etc. For the rest, for the probation and suspension, it's just suspension. They don't have to retake the test. It's just a suspension, and they come back after the suspension and continue with their CEUs. For revocation, they have to retake the test. And that concludes the slides that I have. I definitely want to give you enough time to ask any questions. I know the process can be a little bit confusing. It can definitely be long, and I know that I'm giving you a lot of information in just a little bit of time. I do feel that answering your question is very important. I want to be able to provide the information that you need, so that you can have all the information to either protect your certification or any questions that you may have related to the ISA Code of Ethics. Alex?
For sure, thank you. The very first question we have here is there a record of disciplinary action that's kept on file by the ISA?
Yes. Yeah, we have a record of everyone that either has a case filed against him or her, regardless if the claim was accepted or rejected. We always keep a record of that. If the case is rejected, nothing goes on the credential holder's account. Let's say if the case was accepted and after the hearing, the ISA Ethics Review Committee decided that they were going to revoke the credential. At that point, then there will be a note on the credential holder's account, indicating that that credential holder is not to be certified or gain certification into a certain time, like 2 months, 2 years or 5 years, depending on the period in which the credential was revoked. So yes, if there's a Code of Ethics violation found, then it would be also noted on the credential holders. If there's no violation found, then it won't. Nothing will be reflected on the credential holder's account.
Do you find that there's trends in kind of which not necessarily reflective of which areas have which geographical areas have the most breaches of the Code of Ethics, but moreover is there a certain geographical region that tends to have kind of more complainants submitting files?
Not necessarily a geographical. Well, it will fall into geographical area too, but usually is those states or regions where the state has stricter laws regarding trees or ordinances regarding trees. So, for example, Florida, right? It's just one example. Florida has a strict law regarding removal of trees and obtaining permits. So that is one where the public is very aware that the removal of tree has to meet certain criteria. So usually those states is where I get more questions from regarding the ISA Code of Ethics.
And have you noticed any trends in whether or not the Code of Ethics, complainants submitting Code of Ethics violations, has there been any increase or anything in recent years?
No, it has been pretty steady in the past 5 years. And I went back because I did a article earlier this year, and I went back several years, And it has not been, it's been pretty steady. There's some years it goes up and down, but maybe by no more than 5 cases. And also taking into consideration that like the Western states have more credential holders than, let's say, you know, the mid states. And I'm just talking about the US, but of course we're gonna have more claims in general where there's more credential holders. So that varies.
And a question asked by an attendee here is, what happens when someone is advertising themselves as an ISA certified arborist, and yet they are not as an ISA certified arborist, and they what does the ISA do if they're, you know, advertising themselves an ISA certified arborist on signs and what have you, or their trucks, but they're not actually an ISA certified arborist? What recourse does the ISA have? Is there kind of discreditation of the person in the community based on their marketing? Are there fines or?
Yes, so because they're not certified arborists, the ISA ethics process doesn't apply, right? Because they have not signed that they will abide by the code of ethics if they're not certified arborists. But ISA does have a trademark false advertisement policy where once we're notified that this person is saying he's certified and he's not, then we reach out to them. They do have an opportunity to make the necessary corrections, either remove the content or remove the ISA logo if they're using the ISA logo. They have 30 days to comply. If they not, then they get notified with a final notice. And then for extreme cases, then such claims, such cases can reach our ISA legal counsel.
Do you think that within your kind of perception of the ISA website, do you think that that a homeowner's understanding of kind of the ethical, the codes of ethics that apply and the complaint process, do you think it's readily accessible to homeowners?
Well, you know, I don't know exactly how accessible it is, and of course I welcome any feedback. Of course, I know where to go. You know, I know exactly where to go when I need to pull that information or just get the link and send it to someone. But I would, you know, ask you for that feedback and anybody that is listening, because that's important, right? Because my information is there, but if you cannot get my information, then how do you reach me? So we try to make it as accessible as possible. And if we need to do more, by all means, let me know. I welcome any feedback, because that information needs to be, if you're a credential holder, maybe you are a little more familiar with where to go if you're use a website. But homeowners and the public in general that, you know, log in or go to our website for the first time, I can see how it can be challenging. So I do welcome any feedback.
Off of that, do you notice that are there the complaints that are received, do they tend to be from other arborists or from homeowners or clients?
Everybody, neighbors. So it can be from other credential holders. It can be usually it's your client. Is your client the one that is not satisfied for some reason? Either job not completed, the credential holder left the site, cut the tree and didn't remove the limbs, or the tree trunk stay there, or damage to a fence or to the property and just left it and didn't provide any assistance or didn't fix it. And again, we cannot order the credential holder to pay, but the conduct of the credential holder not doing something to fix the fence, let's say in this case, the fence got damaged when he cut a branch, then that will be the conduct. But it will be more, I'll say more is the clients of the credential holder filing a claim against them for some conduct that they did. One thing that I didn't mention on the slides, and it's also common, is trespassing. So, and this is from the neighbor. So the credential holder is hired to do a job, and the credential holder says, hey, well, make sure that you tell your neighbor that I'll be working on your property this day. And then your client says, oh yeah, I already told him, I already told her. And then you go do the job, and a branch falls on the other side, on the neighbor's property, or you had to go into the neighbor's property to cut some trees. And, you know, even though we may be talking about going into the neighbor's property, you know, in 2 feet, you went 2 feet into the neighbor's property. The neighbor will see that as trespassing. So making sure that either you give that responsibility on your contract or some sort of document to your client, letting him know, letting her know that your client is responsible for talking to their neighbors, then at least you don't have that on you. And just best practices, again, ISA is not telling you what to do, but go to the neighbor and just let them know that you might go into the yard, or just again protect your certification that it's just passing is a common one as well. And this will not come from your client, this will come from the neighbor of your client.
Thank you. Another follow-up question on kind of when it reaches the ethics committee. Question here is whether you can expand upon kind of the idea of the ISA ethics committee vis-a-vis how are the 7 on the committee chosen? How long do they remain on the committee? Do they have to reach consensus? Stuff like that.
Sure. The 7 members of the ISA Ethics Review Committee serve for a period of 5 years. And they, of course, you know, whenever one completes the 5 years, then I recruit and reach out to other credential holders. How they are selected, first we look for those that have either 10 or more years of experience in the arboriculture industry, that they are active and in good status with their credential, either CA or BCMA. And then whatever resumes we receive, then that goes to the current members of the ISA Ethics Review Committee, and they provide their recommendation of, you know, which member, which candidate, which CA best fits the needs of the committee. And then after that recommendation, it goes to ISA Executive Director for final approval. So they do have to meet certain criteria to become members of the ISA Ethics Review Committee. Sorry, I didn't answer a part of your question that you asked regarding consensus. The majority has to be in agreement with either accepting a case or not, rejecting a case or not, and also regarding is there a violation, and if there's one violation of what provision or provisions of the Code of Ethics. If there is a violation, then they also have to have consensus of what's the punishment. And there are conversations. I mean, there's 7 members, you know, they all have been doing the job the credential holders are doing now.
And for issues that are relatively like regional in application, so for example, if there's a state state regulation on, you know, being an ISA certified arborist, for example, Manitoba has the Manitoba Forest Health Protection Act, and under those regulations, you have to be a certified arborist or a licensed arborist in order to prune trees in Manitoba, for example. If you were to get into those situations of provincial or state acts or regulations that influence kind of the code of ethics, how would you kind of like progress through that when there's like very regional knowledge that has to be applied to like the ethics case? Do you bring in people from that government body to discuss it, or is it research done by the ISA Ethics Committee?
The ISA Ethics Review Committee does not do any research besides what is submitted to us. So if, let's say someone from that region submits an ethics charge statement to me and says this credential holder violated our, the local enforcement or act, and then if they must provide that along as a supportive document of what act or what law was violated. So it falls on the complainant to provide to prove that this credential holder potentially violated the code of ethics.
And do you have does the ISA kind of maintain this like statute of limitations for ethical violations that, if you, let's say someone prunes a tree for a client and then as a consultant you come in and say, well, this tree was topped, 6 years ago and doesn't meet kind of our normal best management practices. Are they able to then file a code of ethics complaint like after a given number of years? Or is there a limitation to when you will stop accepting those violations?
There's no time limitations as long as the credential holder is still an active credential holder. And the reason that the credential holder has to be an active credential holder is because there's no disciplinary action. If the credential holder is no longer a credential holder today, then there's no penalty that can be enforced upon him. So there's no time limitations. If there's something happened 2 years ago and the CA still is an active credential holder, then a claim can be brought.
And your with the ISA Ethics Committee, what would you say is kind of like the percentage of complaints received versus complaints kind of like acted upon, so to speak, where it is truly a violation?
I'll say, I can't remember the exact numbers on the article, on the previous article. It varies. It varies, Alex. I can't say off the top of my head how many, because I can't tell you an exact number because there, are those cases received, and out of those, some are rejected, some are accepted. Out of the accepted ones, there's it could be a violation or not.
In 2020, for example, how many complaints were received by the ISA?
In what year? In 2020?
In 2020.
Let's see. Alex, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I know I have them.
Oh, good, very good. Folks with any remaining questions, we have 5 minutes left in the webinar. There's a few that coming through the chat and a few in the questions box. Feel free to submit any more that you have.
I believe we had in 2020 between 15 and 20 cases. And I'll make a note to send you the article to you, so you'll see it. But yes, if I'm not mistaken, we had about 15 to 20 cases in 2020.
And that's across the 35,000 certified arborists, correct?
That is correct.
Bringing it back to a question that was a little bit further back about the record of disciplinary action. As an employer, or whether you're a commercial company or a government body, if an arborist has faced kind of severe disciplinary action, is that something that an employer can request, similar to a background check, or is that private information that only the ISA and the credential holder would have access to?
Such information can be disclosed depending on who's asking for it and the reasons for it. And that will be up to, ISA and the ethics review committee to disclose that information.
And I assume that would sometimes come in through, the form of a law firm or something like that, contacting about, as you mentioned, the ISA doesn't deal with kind of the property damages. So if that, do you sometimes hear from law firms then that they're requesting that information, or asking whether or not something would be an ethics violation?
Yes, you are correct. That is the most common way that we receive requests regarding credential holders, not only credential holder status in their credentials, but also, what's anything related to the credential holder. And it's usually because there is a court case going on. And either they need to verify that the credentials of the credential holder, or they're trying to, verify, the knowledge of the credential holder and of course, the character of the credential holder, depending on the case, the court case. But yes, you're right.
Terrific. And with that, we've finished our questions and the chats. So I want to extend a massive thank you to Rosa for joining us here today, all the attendees in the audience. As a reminder, the Canadian Tree Fund webinar series continues to be a free webinar series at our aims and our commitment to promoting arboriculture research and education in Canada. However, if you enjoy the webinar series, we do greatly appreciate any donation to the Canadian Tree Fund to help further the very industry in which we work. For those of us joining through ISA Ontario, you'll know that there's 1,500 ISA certified arborists, and for no more than the price of a new chain each, we can fund the future of Canadian arboriculture research and outreach. In the chat, you will see a link to the Canadian Tree Fund donation page. An additional easy way to support this series and keep it rolling is to support a Tour de Trees rider, who in turn supports tree research grants through their participation. Team Canada has assembled a virtual team of Phil Graham, Warren Hazelton, and Jim Urbanowski this year. You can support their virtual ride for research at the following link as well. And with that, a big thank you for all our supporters. A big thank you for Rosa for joining us, and ISA Ontario for putting this together. Thanks, everyone.